the very last React challenge of the bootcamp. Actually, the very last challenge, ignoring the ping pong challenge, right? Which doesn't count for the blue tick.
What?
It should do, right? It should do. Yeah. I think I've mentioned many times the story of the guy who got the job. Well, one of the reasons why he got the job is because he played ping pong really well. Yeah? So that's very important. Exactly. This is so ping pong counts as much as every other criteria combined. Yeah, Anna is like that, right? And not because she needed it, definitely. All right, so question number 1. Display a list of movies. What we got here, we essentially need to, well, we have an array of movies, right? Which is an array of objects, title, year, director, all these sort of boring things. And essentially we have to format the output with something a bit more human-friendly. So the very first thing that I don't really like about that exercise, it's not that I don't like it, it's like if I'm doing a job interview, if I need to build that, my very first concern will be, do we really need to use a stateful component? I mean, we could, that's fine, no problem at all. However, we don't need any state. If we don't need any state, what's the point of overcomplicating things? One of the classic problems when talking about software development is over-engineering, trying to do too many things because, maybe in the future that has proved to be a mistake. So yes, let's do whatever we need, the minimum effort to satisfy our business appetite. Yeah? So I don't think we need that, and if I'm wrong, fine, then I'll go back to a class-based function. In other words, generally speaking, if you're unsure, use a function, use a stateless component. And if you are wrong, you'll notice because you won't be able to solve the problem. All right, so function, movies. So essentially, that component receives how many properties, guys? One, correct. Thank you, Patrick. We receive a list of movies, which I believe is an array, right? Yes, it's an array of movies, no problem at all. Can we destructure that? Yes. How we do that? Yeah? Correct. I like this, yeah? It finds easier to understand the expectations. It's not props, it's a list of elements. All right, so then let's return something. Return what? List.map. I'll kind of like that. And then here we got, let's call it movie for now, right? And then what else? Well, according to the problem, look, we have, we need to essentially create or drop every movie on a paragraph. So let's put the p tag, and then inside of the p tag we need to display the details of that movie. What do we need to display? First of all, the title. No problem at all. Let's do movie.title. What else? The year, right? Movie.year with parentheses. Nice one, nice. And what else, finally? Comma directed by movie.director, right? Comma directed by movie.director. So if that's your input, what do you think? Happy, not happy? Any improvements? The key, that's a good point, yes. Remember, every time you create a loop with React, we need to have a key. Does anyone remember why we need a key in React? Correct. If we don't pass any key, or the key is wrong, like key equal bodies, yeah, React won't be able to identify the order. And why that matters? Because imagine that you are creating a list of people, and at some point you want to sort. You want to change the order, right? Sort by first name, sort by age, sort by sexiness, whatever, yeah? So that's why having a key is important. And it's important because probably on your very first loop ever, it doesn't matter. But in the long term, you may receive negative surprises if you don't use it accordingly. So can you tell me an appropriate key for that P tag? Title, all right, yeah. Let's assume that every movie has a different title, which I think is okay. Yeah, in a real platform, that may be an issue, because I'm sure we can all think about movies with the same title. Yeah? Can you think about any of these? 2 movies with the same title? The Thing, yeah? Correct? Second? Lion King, yeah. So the title of the movie is not some sort of rocket science in terms of ID. But anyway, it satisfies the appetite of this problem. All right, anything else we want to improve? Yeah, I love that one. Look at how long that line is, right? We'll get a warning for sure. Like, you are forcing me to scroll left and right to understand what you're trying to do, which is not good. However, as Richard suggested, we can destructure movie. So, can we do that? Title, comma, year, comma, director, and now with the very sexy shortcut to select all the references, remove that. Can we do that? Lovely. That's a fantastic spot. There are 2 classic issues when dealing with React. And when I mean classic, things that are not obvious, and it will ruin everything. First of all, that code won't run. Why? Because even though in reality we have a single argument, whenever we destructure it, we need to surround it with parentheses. Parentheses never hurt. So if you're unsure, just drop the parentheses. Yeah? It's all good. The second problem is this. That's also classic. What do you think? Will this work or not? Correct. Remember that if you use the curly brackets, we need to explicitly return something. Yeah? Or the alternative is just using parentheses. Even simpler in that particular case, right? So, anything else? No? All right, so let's see if that works. Confetti time or not? Yes, confetti time. Yeah. Cool. That was question number 1. Let me have a quick look to your proposals. So, nice. So she kept the class component. Again, it's not a bad thing, right? But I hope you can see that it's a bit more complicated, right? I like that. I like that line. For some people, that's unnecessary. Because some people think, the structuring is fantastic if we got 10 properties, so then simplify things. But even in that case, I have to admit something. The very first time I started dealing with the structuring, I didn't find that pattern that interesting, but now I'm using it all the time. Why? Because I don't have to type list twice. You have to type less. Yeah? In other words, what is simpler? Look, that or that? It's not a big thing, right? but instead of list, the variable name is welcome to summer. I hope you can feel the difference, right? So first of all, you have to type less, and on top of that, if tomorrow we have to rename welcome to summer to welcome to hell, then we need to do it once. Yeah? So I like it. And then what else? So, and then, yeah, of course, it's doing the classic loop, using the title. I like the structuring on the argument side. So yeah, all good for Anais. What else? Mr. Vincent, Imperial Majesty. So what happened here? He did essentially the same thing as we did, right? So he found a way to refactor and use a stateless function to simplify things a bit. So that's literally perfect. Cannot complain about anything here. And that was question number 1. So, anything else, guys, here? Is there anything you want to talk about? Anything you disagree with? No? All right. So, question number 2. What we got here? So, we need to build a form with a couple of fields, one input field and one label, right? And the plan is, whenever we type our expected salary, then the label should display a human-friendly message at the bottom, something like that, right? Why at the bottom? Not necessarily at the bottom, right? This is not talking about the order of the elements. Anyway, do we need a stateful component or not? Why yes, Anais? That's correct. In that particular case, we need to change the state because we are changing the value of the input field, right? So we need to change the state. All right, so let's first of all prepare the constructor. Remember, when you put the constructor, you need to type super and then this dot state. So we're talking about money, right? About salaries. So I will naturally call that variable salary. And for me, it will be an empty string for now. And then on the render function, return, you can see that, again, I'm not following a sequential order. I'm first of all preparing the skeleton, and then I'll have the ability to focus into the details. So we got an input type what? Type number. So that means that the user is only allowed to type numbers, which is a good thing, because we cannot have salary Burger King. That doesn't make sense, right? So type number, and then we got label. So imagine that this is our approach. If I got this dot state dot salary, then display a label. This salary is something like that, right? Oh, sorry. This salary is, no, expected salary, sorry. Expected salary, colon, and then this dot state dot salary. Else, I don't know. Again, I'm not defending that. I'm just exposing a approach. And then, of course, when we change the input, how do we capture the new value on the input, guys? Value, all right. Value equals what? Yeah. Correct. Do we need anything else? We need to create what? A function for what? To change the value. Input-wise, how do we capture the change? On change, and then what? Capital C, nice one, and then what? Yeah, let's do that. This dot update salary. Yeah, for instance, yeah. So now here, update salary, then what? This dot set state, correct, and then what? Yeah? Event.target.value. So let's leave it like that. What do you think, guys? Can anyone see any problem? Correct. Event is a variable. But where is that variable coming from? Nowhere, right? So we need to pass it here. Remember that this on change, there are two things we can do. We can, in reality, the best way to do that, you remember, to avoid issues with lexical this. Do you remember that? We did that. So we on change passes an event, and then we say no problem, send that event that includes the new value of the input to the update salary function. Anything else, guys? Will this be perfect or not? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because in here we are passing an argument, but of course we can rename it here to Vincent. That's fine. It's just an object, right? Any improvement point, guys? New line, correct. That line is horrible, right? Very long. So let's add some break lines before every attribute. Something like that. Yeah? Much better. Easier to read. Will this work or not? Let me show you the expectations on the left-hand side. We don't have false. We do have false. I'll tell you something. That won't work. And let's try to analyze why. If I evaluate it, I'm sure it will fail. Here you go. It fails. Class names. Why class names? We are not expecting, if we look at these selectors, we are not doing anything with class names. So no, we don't need class names. Can anyone see what the problem is? Input, yeah? Not within one bracket. That's interesting. That's a good point, Patrick. So, from a structural point of view, how many root elements do we have? Correct. Abdul is right. We should have one. But how many root elements do we have, Abdul? This is just an if-else. If something happens, display a label. If not, display a div. So how many root elements do we have? 2. Is that valid in React? How can we solve the problem? I want you to tell me 4 different ways to solve the problem. React fragments, correct. So we can use a fragment here. You remember that? That will be an option. And then we have a root element surrounding everything else. Oops. Option 1. Option 2. What else? A div. Fair enough. We can have a div. Yeah. What's the difference between a div and a fragment? Correct. A div is an actual tag. It's something that will be rendered. A fragment is like a hidden tag. So there will be nothing, visually speaking. Yeah? Right. We got 2 alternatives. I want you to tell me 2 more. Empty tag. Yes, empty tag, which is a fragment as well. You see? That's the equivalent. It's the same as a fragment. It's
okay, so what you did earlier and that are the same thing, because that's what I was thinking about when I said direct fragment.
Yep. That's the new approach on fragments. Why? Because it's simpler. Be careful. This tag, the empty tag, is not valid on HTML. If you create an HTML page with an empty tag, it will explode your computer, right? But in React, it's fine. Okay, so we've seen 3 ways. 2 of them fragments, explicit fragment, implicit fragment. We've seen using a div. Is there any other way? And don't tell me using a label instead of a div or things like that. Is there any different approach in React? Ah, nice, nice. I like that one. Yeah? And let me go back to what the guys did on question number 1. Look, not sure if you pay attention, but if we got 3 movies, how many root elements do we have here? 3. Yeah? But that worked, right? We've seen, it's green. It worked. So why with 3 root elements it did work? Because with React, we can return an array of elements. Map. Map returns an array of elements. We don't care if it's an array of fruits, an array of people, but it's an array at the end of the day. Yeah? That's why, as Richard suggested, another alternative, and I'm not a big fan of that one in this particular case, but hey, that's still valid. We could do that. Correct. Then we need to do 2 things. Because we have an array, we need to add a key here and a key in there, right? And do we need to do anything else? How many elements this array has? Correct. Why comma, Richard?
Because it's 2 elements, I need separate elements.
Correct. We want to return an array of 2 elements. How do you separate elements within an array? With commas, correct. So if we do that, comma. Yeah. Again, I'm not a big fan of that because it's a bit harder to read, in my opinion. This is very personal. The surrounding square brackets are fine, but then I need to realize that I need to put a comma at the end. It's not that obvious, right? To me, that makes a lot of sense when the array is some sort of automatically generated, like this case. But whenever we have to manually do that, not good. That's why we got fragments. So yes, let's use a fragment. And of course, let's indent this accordingly, right? Will this work? No? Why not? All right, let's run it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. But in that case, we got a message. What that message means?
Well, it's trying to run .text, the function that will map text on something.
Yep.
And it's trying to run it on the node, so that applies to us as trying to run it on something that we found with the wrapper. Because that defines this group of nodes.
Yep.
So it would probably be that get message.text is giving us an error because perhaps it's not getting the actual message. So we're getting 0 nodes there, and putting .text on 0 nodes.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's correct, Richard. So in here, the way we read that line is, A, get me the message node, the message tag. And how do we do that? Well, we call this function, and we are trying to find an element, which is a label. And once you find it, give me the text of that label. But the problem here is, hey, I was expecting you to display one label, but I found none. Why is that?
Because he's going to say that salary
Correct.
needs to be inside.
Exactly. Anais is right. this exercise is assuming that the label, the tag, will be always there. Other question is the content, but the tag should be always there. Because of that, as Anais suggested, we need to change that structure a bit and thankfully get rid of this ugly empty div, right? So we need to, let me show you, put the logic inside of the label. And as a side effect, I hope the code will become a bit more readable. Look, so if this dot state dot salary, then something like that. Else what? Empty string. What do you think about that?
You want these to surround express salary, this dot salary in constitution.
Correct. So Vincent says something very interesting. Remember, guys, that every time we open curly brackets, we are joining the amazing world of pure JavaScript. In pure JavaScript, that doesn't really make sense. What's that? Yeah? Or let me rephrase that. Can I go to my VS Code, which is on the other tab, and that means that I cannot read anything locally. This is going to be complicated. Can I create, I don't know what I'm typing now. Hello, oh, clicking random. Can I create a new file and can I do that? No, that doesn't make any sense, right? That won't work for sure. As Vincent suggested, we need to enclose that. This is a string, right? So we need to either use backticks or single quotes somehow, but we need to build a string. And now, how do we do that? Well, what we need to do is surround it backticks. Anything else? $, correct, because this is not React anymore. This is just JavaScript. In JavaScript, you remember the dollar symbol to surround the interpolated expression. All right, anything else, guys? No? Let's see if it works. It does work. Yeah? Cool. And what you did here, question number 2. So Patrick, he's using an empty fragment, input, yeah, and then the label is very similar, right? Set salary value. Does anyone has any concern about Patrick's solution in terms of semantics? Correct. To me, that variable name is a bit confusing because in the React world, props is what the component receives from the parent component. But in this particular case, that's not what we want. We don't want to access the properties of the parent component. We want to access the event. Yeah? Same here. I know it works, right? Because we can call it however we want, but for readability purposes, I will definitely call that E or event here, 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 and there. Does it make sense, Patrick? Cool. But apart from that, it's all good for him. And now, Anais. I've seen that many times. Some people get props and then they pass it to the super thingy. Do we really need to do that? No. That only makes sense if we do want to access the props on the constructor, as we'll see on question number 5 in a few minutes. But in reality, we are doing nothing. We're doing nothing with props. So it's unnecessary. Yeah? However, then she's using E, which gives me a feeling that this is an event, and then she's updating the salary. Yeah, and then indentation is a bit romantic here, right? code is in the middle of nowhere. I think it should be indented like that. Yeah. But apart from that, oh, and look at that. What was that? Oh, it's weird, right? It did work, but yeah, let's mind this kind of, extra curly brackets floating around. They could ruin our productivity easily. And finally, Vincent. So you see, Vincent is not using props, which I agree with. And then his salary handler, all right? So he calls the method. It's pretty much the same thing. Yeah. It's all good from a styling point of view. I don't really agree on the spacing criteria because, for instance, this is an object. So I believe we should put a space here and there. And likewise, he's using spaces here that I don't think is very standard when defining React attributes. Yeah. Again, nothing is right or wrong. It all depends on how do you define that. If you are unsure about that, remember what I always said. Go to Airbnb React style guide, right? This is a very nice GitHub repo where the people from Airbnb tells you when do we use spaces, when not to use spaces, semicolons, all these things. And you see, bad, good, this and that, right? So then you don't return something on the same line, add always a break line. Yeah? Again, this is not like anything of sort of Bible of styling, but it's a good approach. Whenever I'm not sure about how to do something, I check with them because they tend to argue why, under their point of view, that strategy is better than another one. Yeah? Cool. So, that was question number 2. Let me jump straight to question number 4 because this is where we want to struggle, just in case we run out of time. Question number 4. Interesting. So we got another form with 2 inputs. One is to set up your email address, and another one is to set up a button. And the way it works is, by default, both inputs will be active, so the user can interact with them. However, at some point, we want to click on the submit button. At that time, both inputs will become disabled. So we prevent user from submitting the form twice. And after half a second, then we enable the button, enable the inputs again. I think that's a common scenario, right? All right, so let's analyze where the difficulty is, because that sounds fairly simple to me. First of all, do we need to use a class? Do we need a stateful component? Yes, we definitely need that, because we again need to interact with our user interface. So, constructor, this.state, super, before I forgot, and then I would like to create a flag, something like is loading. By default will be false, right? Because by default we want to let the user interact with our form. All right, and then render. Let's return 2 tags. Do we need to enclose them? Do we need to use a fragment or something like that? Yes, because we have 2 inputs, right? So let's prepare it a bit. And now input type email for now, and then button. I don't think there is any requirement regarding the text of the button. So yeah. And now what else? We want to obviously capture the on-click event. So whenever we click on the button, we want to disable everything. So how do we capture user click, guys? On click, right? On click equals, and it's the same thing, right? Do we need the event here? Not really. The event makes sense when we want to capture the value, which makes sense when we are dealing with on-chains using an input, because we want to capture the new value of the input. But when using a button, there is nothing to capture, just the event itself, right? So then this dot, I don't know, submit. Again, the semantics may be improved for sure, right? And then on this submit button, we want first of all to change the state from false to true. How do we change the state, guys? This dot set the state, correct, and then it's loading true. No? Negated. Why negate? Well, I mean, of course, yeah, we can do that. If Vincent is happy, I'm happy too, right? And then?
Yeah, I think I get what you said. If you get true, does that not mean it's going to be stuck? But then when you're not having a total button,
Okay, let's leave it like that for now. What else? Set timeout. And set timeout means after half a second. How many milliseconds half a second is, guys? 500. Brilliant. Top of the top. And then what? We can actually, I can copy the same line again. Yeah? Technically speaking, that's correct. That means, A, when we submit, change the value. If it was false, it will become true. After half a second, change it again. If it was true, it will become false. However, to me, that's a bit exhausting because I know that when I click submit, yeah, I want to mark the status as loading, and after half a second, I want to put it back. It feels just simpler, right? All right, and what's missing? Correct, that's the missing part. At the moment, we are playing with the flag. It's loading true, false, which is good. However, this doesn't have any impact on the user interface, right? So we need, and that's the key, to add a new field called new attribute, disabled equals what? Negate that. So what are we saying here? What happens if we negate it? From a user experience perspective. Let's negate also the button. Yeah? Both sides.
You won't be able to fix anything.
Correct. This is breaking the user interface, right? Because we say, hey, if we are not loading anything, disable the fields. So the user will render the page, the input will be disabled, the button will be disabled, there will be no user interaction, and he'll commit to suicide. We don't want that. So we need to change that, right? Disable the field if we are loading, if we are sending data to the backend or whatever. Yeah? And of course, let's deal with the readability by adding some break lines, something like that. What do you think? Are we missing anything here? It will work like that, all right? Unless anyone disagree, let's try it. It does work. Yeah? So, a nice beam sent Patrick. Does it make sense? Yeah. All right, so then let me have a look to your code to see why it didn't make sense before. So that was question number 4. Actually, so only Vincent tried. So guys, let's do an exercise. Let's try to find out where the problem was with Vincent's solution. So everyone apart from Vincent, let's read the exercise. So reset password, disable input false instead of this loading, right? But it's the same idea, right? He has a flag set to false, and then on the render, he's using a nice style for destructuring disable input. He's using it here, so that piece looks good. So I believe the problem is on the click-handler method. So can anyone apart from Vincent and Richard tell me where is the problem? Here.
Can I see your code again quickly? So notice something by the time of what's called
You want to see what?
your code.
No, you cannot see my code, of course.
What's the issue with there's only one function inside the code handler? You had a set one for the timeout, but I can't remember what was. Oh.
What are you trying to do logically when you click the button? What do you think should happen?
First it should change this set state and then it should go to the set.
That's correct. Look, when you go to any platform and you sign up to get the $500 credit with Oracle Cloud, when you click on the submit button, as soon as you click, immediately the form becomes disabled with a spinner loading somewhere like processing your request, right? Or when you buy something on Amazon, as soon as you click, immediately, I want to disable my form. And then, in that particular case, this is simulating a process of doing something with the backend. After some time, in that particular case, half a second, we want to give the control back to the user, probably by showing a message, thank you for trying to buy alcohol, but you are not 18 yet, all these things, right? So, back to my code. I hope now it makes sense, right? So when we submit, first of all, block any user interaction, and after half a second, then enable it again. In a real scenario, again, that wouldn't make sense, right? We probably, in a real scenario, we will do something like that. This is pseudocode. Don't try to run it as such. But in a real scenario, it should be something like that. You see? It's the equivalent. That means disable the form, go to the backend. That may take 1 minute, hopefully not, but it may take a while. And then, once the user got the control back with the data, with the list of sexy people, then we can, mark the loading to false. Generally speaking, if we want to display a list of people, probably we'll do something like that, right? People by default will be an empty array, and then then we got a list of people. So then in a realistic scenario, then we can do people, or we can use a shorthand. You remember that? Yeah, we can do that. And of course, now in the UI, in the render, we can map people and display the details, all these things, right? That will be more realistic. Any question, guys? No? All right. So, question number 5. I think that's more relevant than number 3. Look at what we got here. We want to calculate something. We are expected to create a component with a state. So this is crystal clear. We need a stateful component. And the state needs few properties. First of all, 7 and 4. This is hard-coded because of whatever reason. And then we need a third one called total. We'll see how to calculate the total. Let's prepare the exercise for now. So, let's run the constructor. And then let's type super this.state equals A7, I think, B4, something like that, right? And then on the render function, return, it's just a message. div, close the div, and the message is the total is what? Look, we need to declare a total property into the state. So here we can do this dot state dot total. And now the question is, that's the tricky part. How do we build that property in here? Total what? It depends on the third property, C, right? So it would be A, 7, plus B, 4, plus C. If C is 5, 7 plus 4 plus 5 is 16, correct, right? That's why we should display the total is 16. But now the question is, the complexity. How do we calculate the total? How do we get access to C? Props. I like that. Props. So here we can access props.c. But then how do we add A and B? 7 plus 4, yeah, I mean, we can do that. But then it's a bit annoying, right? Because we are declaring the same thing twice. Can we create a few variables, guys, to make it super simple? A equals 7, B equals 4, and we can even do total equal A plus B plus what? Props.c, correct. You see how easy it is. Now, can we use shorthand here? Can we do that? A, comma, B, comma, total. Okay, how sexy this code is, right? Anything else? No? Are you sure? Do you remember someone before, I think it was Anais, she used props, and I said, you don't really need to pass props to super unless you want to access it. In that particular case, are we dealing with props? Yes, we are. We are reading the props. Because of that, remember, when that happens, to pass it here. In other words, if you pass it here, then you pass it there. If you don't pass it here, then you don't pass it there, right? Only do it if you need it. If not, that's all right. I mean, technically speaking, you can always drop it if that makes you feel more comfortable, but it's just a bit unnecessary. All right, so will it work? Yes, it does work. And what you did here, oh, that's nice. You all solved the problem. Look, see what happened with Patrick, right? What we mentioned before. What happened if tomorrow the value of A instead of 7 is 8? We need to remember to change it twice. That's the only subtle thing. But yeah, all good. Apart from that, he's using also a fragment, empty fragment, so I like it. All good, right? For Anais, oh, she's cheating even more, right? The thing is, if I'm joining your team, I'm new in the company, and I see the code, I may complain, but I really understand at least what he's trying to do, right? I think it's not the most efficient way maybe, but I understand it. However, if I join a nice team, I will probably leave the company immediately. 11, why 11? What's going on, right? So we shouldn't do that, obviously. And then to make it yes, so you can see Anais is calculating the total twice. You see? Here with the magic number and then manually again here. That's not necessary. Yeah? Because you can simply do this dot state dot total. Cool. And finally, Vincent, following Patrick's style. Yeah. From a readability point of view, can anyone see any problem, ignoring the number handling in terms of curly brackets and things like that? Any elegance issue? Correct. Patrick is right. That feels a bit weird to me, a curly bracket. If you open it here, it should close there for readability. Look at the construction. You open it on the right-hand side, you close it on a new line at the bottom. So that should be the same pattern. Also, does anyone has any thoughts about the render method? That's correct. Patrick is right once again. There is no need of that. It works, it's fine, but in reality, look, we said, hey, we entered the JavaScript world because of the curly brackets, and because of that, we need to use a template literal. In reality, actually, let's do something. Let's copy that. Let's prove it works. And then, look, you can just get rid of that, right? Simpler. And now it should still work. Cool. Anything else, guys? No? Because we got 10 minutes, I would like to do at least a couple of questions for Iwon on the beginners. So, first of all, actually, rather than doing the challenge, I think it will be more efficient to try to understand altogether where the problem is with Iwon code, so then we'll know how to fix it. So, question number 1, here we go. So look, we need to display welcome to React. And here the problem is, it's something similar to what Vincent did before. So Iwon, you don't really need the backticks. Or let's do something. Let me copy your code, then let me paste it. Yeah. So look at how simple this is actually. If we get rid of the backticks, and then we get rid of the dollar symbol, yeah, that's one thing, right? So welcome to React. And now let's have a look to that. So in here, what do we receive? These are the props. Yeah? I mean, the name is okay. You can call it however you want. You can call it shallow, even though that sounds a bit weird. But generally speaking, the community likes to call that props because here you got an object with a list of properties. And then in here, you need to access the property that you want. So props dot Iwon, can you tell me the name of the property we try to access? User. Correct. That's correct. Props.user. And I think that should work. Let's have a look. It does work. Yeah? So you can see, Iwon, that your idea was right. You just made it a bit more complicated than it was. But I think the strategy was correct. Do you have any questions here, Iwon? Yeah.
Explain what Shallow does for you.
Yeah, so Shallow, that's a React testing thingy. So when you create an app, you don't use Shallow. But if you are testing, Shallow is a way to, virtually speaking, mount your component so you can interact with it. Yeah? If you've been doing a bit of expert training, you may have seen, apart from Shallow, other stuff like mount or even render. So there are different ways to test React components. Yeah? Shallow is the most basic one. It's a keyword. Yeah, you can think about it as a keyword. It's a function that comes bundled with the React testing. And then question number 2. On question number 2, interesting. So here we want to display a list of Hollywood actors, right? So E1, how many properties our function, our component receives? Not really. Not really. When we talk about how many properties, you need to look at what's on the left of the equal symbol. So how many keys we have on the left of the equal symbol? Correct. Correct. Our component only receives a single property, which is the list of actors, right? And that means, look, we got the props here, and actually the exercise is half done, right? Props.actors, that will access the array of actors. How many actors do we have, Iwan? Correct. Yeah, that's correct. The age and the name, right? This is half done already. Look, props.actors.map. Do you remember what map is, Iwan? Correct. It iterates over the list of elements, actors, yeah, and then it returns for every actor. It returns a different element. So, lines, we need to do it here inside of the p tag, because every actor will have a p tag. So in here, you see, inside is where we can type. What do we want to display? You want to remember player dot name, correct? And then what else? Player dot age, correct. Let's evaluate it. Why what? Because that's the syntax, right? That's the way you access the value hosted on the name property. Yeah, with curly brackets, we can get the values of objects like this one. If you find this line a bit confusing, you can always add a break line. Look, maybe now it's a bit more readable. Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's correct. Let's see if it works. That I don't think that will work, and we'll see in a minute why. Look, thankfully, we can compare. So can you tell me, Iwan, what's the difference between our solution on the left and the expected solution on the right? This line. The parentheses, correct. We are expecting to surround the age of the actor with parentheses, which is now a piece of cake, because we can simply type parentheses, you see, surrounding the age. Does it make sense? Yeah. Let's see if it works. It does work. Yeah? So you see how simple this was. Shallow. No, you don't need to use shallow. Just ignore shallow. Shallow only makes sense if you're writing the test, if you're preparing the test, but that's not your duty. Your duty is, once someone else has written the test, you have to solve it. Yeah? So ignore the shallow thingy. Let's do the last one quickly. Last question. Look, again, how many props do we receive here? Yvonne? Correct, which is an array of drivers. You agree on that?
Yes.
Cool, fantastic. And then look on the right hand side that this is again is half done already. Props.driver. Yeah. Do you know what filter is doing here, Iwan? Yeah, so this, yeah, correct. So we have a list of drivers. Some of these are world champions, some others are not. So by using filter, we essentially are shrinking. We are reducing the size of the array. We'll keep in that particular case only the first and the last one, not the second. So this one will be discarded. And once we have the first and the last, what do we need to do? We need to display something, I don't remember, the name of the driver. So we got the driver here. How do we display his or her name, Yvonne? Driver is an object, right? Yeah, curly braces, and then what? Driver what? Correct. That's it, right? I think that's it. Let's see if I miss anything. Yeah, that was it. So you got it, right? You can see it's not that complicated. Yeah. So do you have any questions, Iwan? Yeah? All right. Please keep training, keep practicing with these exercises. Please drop me a message and let me know on Slack. Yeah, I'm more than happy to support you. Yeah, but you can see you got the idea. The structure is there. You just need to keep practicing to make sure. Because the thing is, even if you fail by something silly, you forget to put the curly bracket, then you ruin it. It doesn't work, right? That's why I understand this is sometimes frustrating, because that needs to be perfect. But obviously, the more you practice, the more accurate your solution will be. Cool. Thank you, Iwan. Anything else, guys? No? Cool. So that was it. Thank you.